please come forward. Honorees, please come forward. Our honorees, please. There we are. Let's give a round of applause. The men and women of Anne Arundel County who are making a difference. Let me, before we formally start the program, we had a tragedy here in Annapolis. A man was murdered, and another child was wounded. So we want to take a moment of silence, lift the family up in prayer who's lost a loved one, and lift up the family of the young man who was injured. It should not be mistaken that a child going to school at 7:25 a.m. in the morning should not be subject to this kind of wanton, reckless, senseless violence. So we want to take a moment of your time and ask you to take a moment of silence and pray for the young man for a speedy recovery and the family of the deceased. Thank you so very much. Tonight's program is in honor of Black History Month, recognizing a few of the many, and recognizing the fact that people who happen to be African American have made a tremendous contribution to the development of this nation. We're going to be finding some time during this program to honor those who have come before us and honor those who are with us. Before getting formally started, I want to ask all police officers, please stand. They did a marvelous job this morning. With the police officers here, please stand. Something that Dr. Bedell said at the press conference that really resonated with me. He said not only are young people traumatized by this experience, but those teachers and staff members who work with them every day, they too were traumatized. Would anybody working in the Anne Arundel County public school system or in private schools, Severn, the Key School, places like that, educators, would you please stand? Anyone who's an educator, please stand. Now, with no further ado, the spotlight is on a man named Will.
All right.
I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh and eat well and grow strong, because tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too sing America.
An excerpt from Langston Hughes, one of the brilliant poets. We have a number of elected officials, and I'm going to ask one of them to join me here on the stage. Our county executive, Stuart Pittman, would you come forward, please, and join me up here so I'm not all by myself. Let's give our county executive a round of applause. We have tonight with us as well Scott Poyer, who's the clerk for the Anne Arundel County Circuit Court, one of our great elected officials. His assistant, M. McKay, is with him. Fowler, would you please stand? Delegate Andrew Pewski. Our County Council Representative, Allison Pickard, from the 2nd District. I'm so proud of the next guy I'm just going to introduce. Every time I see him, it just makes me so proud. Please recognize our Sheriff, Everett Sesker. God, I'm proud of him. Connor Kern is a member of the Democratic Central Committee. Connor, would you stand, be recognized? A real history maker in his own right, he was the first African American to become chairman of the Anne Arundel County Council, Pete Smith. Pete Smith. We have Delegate Baylor, our newest, there we are. A former alderman from the city of Annapolis who represented the same district or ward that I represented, Jared Littman. And I'm going to ask to come to the stadium, come to the stage to give some comfort to our county executive, our newest elected Congresswoman, Cheryl Alfred. Would you come forward, please? The Congresswoman. Did I miss any elected official? I was going by the list that was given to me. Who? Lisa! Please stand, my councilwoman. How did I miss that list? You want to know my list? Did I miss anyone else? Any elected official? Let me tell those of you who are present 2 quick things, a way of announcement. There will be a mayoral debate. Yes, Annapolis is going to have an election in September of this year, and in June of this year, there will be a mayoral debate at the Wally H. Bates Legacy Center, which if you are an Annapolitan, we strongly recommend that you come and hear the candidates who are running for mayor. Now we're going to get greetings. And again, that history maker I was talking about earlier, he's got many, many talents. Would you please welcome to the podium the Honorable Pete Smith.
Just want to thank the Honorable Carl Snowden. Today I'm here, bless you, God bless you. I'm not here, I'm not singing today, which is good. Carl, he sometimes likes me to call him at 10 o'clock at night and sing him a song. so not tonight. So good evening to everyone that's here today. Too often we fail victim to someone else's words about about us. We let that impact our ability to live our purpose. To honorees that are sitting here today, thank you, thank you, thank you. I see several of you I've known for many years now, and you represent the best of who we are as a culture. Every time I look at the news and I see the violence and the gun violence in some of our neighborhoods, it just pains my soul. But then we look at the goodness that is happening in our community and the awardees that are being representative of here tonight, and we never get the stories like this out there in the mass media. And some days I just wish we could take a huge microphone or a camera and literally just put them in the spotlight, because they represent who we are as a community and as a nation. So please give them a round of applause for being who and what they are. So I've followed in the steps of many who came before me, but several really were trailblazers. William H. Butler. If you don't know who he is, you should. He was the first African-American elected to state office in Maryland, and he won his seat on the Annapolis City Council in 1873, 152 years ago today. Leaders like Sarah Jones, if you don't know who she is, you should, who started teaching black Anne Arundel County students in 1922 and became the first black woman superintendent for all colored Anne Arundel County public schools, a position in which she held for 40 years until she retired. But today's heroes are just as critical to forge our way into the future. Never forget that you all were created to create. You all were created to create. When I was 15 years old, I had moved around to a bunch of different housing by that time. I think I moved 15 different times from the day I was born to the day I turned 17. I literally lived at 15 different addresses. But my freshman year in high school, and I've mentioned this story briefly before, I was new at the high school. And I remember getting on the bus of that high school and getting into the center aisle, sitting in the center seat when I got in. I didn't know anybody on the bus. And at the next stop, there was this group of students who got on the bus, and they came towards me. And I just saw them their eyes piercing at me, telling me that they were up to no good. And so one of them actually came over and told me to move over to the window seat. At that time, I was just trying to sort of, display my dominance, I guess, to try to show how tough I was. It was about 5 of them, and I saw when they got on, they were all a group hanging out together. But for about 2 minutes, they harassed me and tried to push me over to the window seat. In fact, one of the students actually, put their hand on my head and they muffed me. I don't know if you know what a muff is, but it's one of those disrespectful. For those that grew up in the inner city, you definitely know what that is. They literally muffed me, and so I sat there for about 5 minutes and the bus driver was looking back at us. All the kids were looking at us, trying to figure out what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, the same person that muffed me just yelled at me and told me to move over, or they were going to, basically do some damage to me. And I stood there. I sat there in that chair, and I didn't do anything. In fact, I got so brave, I turned around. I looked up, I looked at her, and it was a her. She had about 4 dudes with her, and I just didn't want them to beat me up on that bus on my first week of school, because it really would have cemented my place at that school. But the reason I tell you that story, it's so powerful. It always reminds me that the only person that could stop me is me. The only person that can stop you is you. And so don't let anybody dictate who you are and what you bring and what value you have in society. So I look at these proud black faces over here, and I see the next generation, the current generation of leaders who are invested in our community, invested in our lives. We just heard about a young man who was obviously was killed today. But when I see these faces, these are the people that are trying to stop that. They range in everything that they're doing in the community, and I'm so proud of them. And so thank you for giving us someone to be. Thank you for giving us someone to be. Congratulations for the honorees.
Our next greeter is no stranger. Jackie Coleman has been just a fantastic partner. She's the executive director here at the Maryland Here she comes. Maryland Arts, Maryland Hall for the Creative Arts. And one of the things we've done is develop a partnership with her. Not only is the county working with her on this program, and the caucus is working with her, but every year, this is a plug for everyone, every year we have what's called the Fannie Lou Hamer Awards. We'll again have it here at Maryland Hall. It's going to be in October. I don't know whether Arlene has a date yet, but we're going to be here, and we're going to be celebrating Fannie Lou Hamer. With no further ado, Jackie Coleman.
All right, well, welcome everyone, and greetings from Maryland Hall. We're so very happy you're here. And actually, we're so very happy that we could accommodate tonight after February 16th was a snow out. I think today's weather was a much better day to have this event. And next year, or when you come back for the Fannie Lou Hamer Awards, just so you know, Maryland Hall is undergoing a capital campaign and some renovation. Is anybody a little bit warm? Yeah, a little bit. Anybody cold? No. So we have this weird thing in the building. Maybe you'll notice that the temperature is very inconsistent. Like when you're in the hallways or in the bathrooms or in the classrooms. We have the original heating system from when this building was built in 1932. And then we have 57 room air conditioners. That's what's keeping us cold with the air conditioning. So it's been very inconsistent, but we are so excited that we are finally undergoing a capital campaign and undergoing a renovation. So I just say all of that because when you come back for the Fannie Lou Hamer Awards, don't be afraid when you see plastic in that hallway. That plastic in that hallway just means that in January of 2027, you're going to feel so comfortable throughout the entire building. And the musicians are going to feel comfortable, and the opera singers when they're wearing those heavy costumes. The art is not going to melt off the wall in the galleries. It's going to be really great. So I'm really grateful you're here. I want to invite you back for this coming Sunday. It's Maryland Day this weekend in Maryland, and we have an open house on Sunday that's totally free. And it's from 11 to 4. You can come and go. We have great food trucks, and we have a lot of, for our classes, what we call demos and try-its. So if you've never taken a class here or you're interested in something maybe you've never taken a class in, pottery or dance or wood turning, you can come and just check it out. The teachers are going to be here. You can go in and out totally free. And then we have Downrange, which I hear is a military band. It's a rock band. I'm very curious. They're performing on this stage at 2 o'clock for free for about a half an hour. So I hope you come back on Sunday. But anyway, I appreciate the moment to greet you, and most importantly, I just want to say congratulations to all the honorees. I feel very blessed that you all are being honored here at Maryland Hall, and I hope you have a fantastic evening. Thank you.
Have anybody been paying attention to what's going on in Washington, D.C.? Doesn't something seem kind of odd? Louis Bracey came up to me and gave me this piece of paper, and he said, an executive order was put out that allowed on federal installations segregation. I said, oh, Louis, that can't be true. Somebody must have made that up. Then I heard the Pentagon had a photograph of Jackie Robinson. Some of you may know that Jackie Robinson served in armed services. He's noted for his breaking the color barrier in terms of baseball, but he served. And it turns out that Medgar Evers, who also served in the armed services, who's buried at Arlington, they took that down. Talking about something called DIE. Somehow that these men and women who had served their nation weren't able to be honored in this manner. As a result of some of the blowback, they have restored the Jackie Robinson piece, I understand. But our next speaker, I've asked to join us in the several weeks when she looks at her calendar so she can help us understand what's going on in Washington, D.C. And more importantly, what we, the citizens, can do to respond. Would you welcome to the podium our newest elected representative from the Congressional District 3, the Honorable Sarah Alfred.
Thank you, Carl, and I look forward to that conversation. I can't talk about that too much tonight because I'm here in my official capacity as your Congresswoman, and that is, I'm excited to have that very real campaign conversation when I'm not wearing my official hat, so I look forward to that conversation. But I'm just so grateful to be here today. As Carl mentioned, there's a lot of foolishness happening in Washington these days. And so anytime I get to be back in the district, especially back in my home part of the district, I'm grateful. I'm also grateful to these incredible honorees this evening. I'm grateful for the opportunity to represent you in Congress. I asked Carl if I could share just a few reflections. About a week and a half ago, I ventured to Alabama, a state I had never been before, but for a very important anniversary. You all might know that 2 Sundays back, it was the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. And I had the opportunity to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge with people who actually crossed it 60 years ago. A young woman who was 8 years old and had the bravery to cross it when she was 8 years old rejoined us, now 68, on the bridge. I had the opportunity to worship at First Baptist, where Reverend Abernathy preached. I had the opportunity to spend time with my colleague Terry Sewell, Congresswoman Terry Sewell from Alabama, and she shared a story that I thought was really apt for today. So she told the story when she was first elected to Congress. She actually brought one of those foot soldiers, Miss Amelia, with her to be her guest at the State of the Union when President Obama was there. And Miss Amelia was 103 years old, and she had to get 3 doctor's notes to get on a plane and go see President Obama speak. And she was in a small room, and people kept coming in line to meet Miss Amelia, the most famous person at that State of the Union that night. And everybody said the same thing to her, my colleague Terry said. Everybody came in and said, Miss Amelia, we stand on your shoulders. And the president came in, and he said it. And next, the Attorney General, Eric Holder, came in, and he said it. And Miss Amelia, 103 years old, looks at the Attorney General, and she said, get off my shoulders. She said, do your own work. And Congresswoman Sewell, she does this story so much better than I could ever, but she has a Post-it in her office that says, do your own work. And I carried that story with me today and share it with you because what happened on that bridge 60 years ago was an act of courage beyond what we can imagine today. And yet the work is not over, as Carl always reminds us. It's a reminder, though, that if not for the bravery of individual people, continuing to bend the curve, that arc of justice, we are never going to meet our goals, meet our values, meet the promise of this nation. And so I share that story because the people on the stage are doing their own work. The people on the stage are making sure that they're living lives that are greater than themselves, for the betterment of their community, for the betterment of the state, for the betterment of this nation. And so I'm just grateful to get out of Washington and be with you all today because you give me hope. Regardless of what is happening, you give me hope that this is the answer for us, each of us, to do our own work. So thank you and congratulations.
You know, I always applaud people when they make great appointments. And the governor has made some incredibly great appointments. One of them we're going to hear tonight from a man I just have a lot of respect for. But I also want to let you know the county executive made a great appointment when he appointed Vincent Moulden, who's going to introduce our next guest. Vincent Moulden, the man of the hour.
All right, good evening, everyone. It is my honor to introduce a past Few of the Many Award winner who continues to inspire through his talent and dedication, Mr. Keanu Smith-Brown. He was a 2023 award winner and he embodies the spirit and service of excellence that we celebrate tonight. As we reflect on this year's theme, African Americans in Labor, we recognize the countless contributions Black workers, leaders, and visionaries who have built and sustained this nation through resilience and faith. Music has long been a source of strength and a testament to that journey. Tonight, Keanu blesses us with a powerful gospel selection, He Wants It All. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
All right. Good evening, blessings to you all. There's a voice that cries out inside, searching for a heart that will love him, longing for a child that will give him their all, give it all. He wants it all. And there's a God that walks over the earth. He's searching for a heart that is desperate, longing for a child that will give him their all, give it all. He wants it all. He said, love me with your whole heart. He wants it all today. Serve me with your life now. He wants it all today. Bow down and throw over your idols. He wants it all today. He wants it all today. He wants it all today. He wants it all. And there's a God who walks over the earth. He's searching for a heart that is desperate, longing for a child that will give him their all, give it all. He wants it all. And he says, love me with your whole heart. He wants it all today. Serve me with your life now. He wants it all today. Bow down, let go of your idols. He wants it all today. He wants it all today. He wants it all today. He wants it all. He wants it all today. All of you, for you. He wants it all today. Oh Lord Jesus, all of you, for you. He wants it all today. He wants it all today. So give it all. In the silence, searching for a heart that will love him, longing for a child that will give him their all, give it all. He who walks it all. Swing low, swing.
Do for yourself. When I took charge of Tuskegee Institute, it was a humble institution, barely 80 slaves.
Let's give Will Rowell another round of applause. We're living in some, I think everyone would agree, interesting time. And never before has it been important, I can't underscore this, for us to understand the importance of voting for people who move to improve the lives of people. I've been saying over and over again that there is a problem with some of our elected officials in America. Elected officials are public servants. There are those who want to be mini celebrities. They want to have their entourage. But that's not what we elect people for public office for. We elect people for public office to make a difference in the lives of people. And I'm just so proud of the man on what they introduced. I can see it. As a native of this county, I've seen the improvement he has done for the people. It's reflected in the staff that he has appointed. It's reflected in the services that he has done. Most people have forgotten all about this, but I want to bring it up because it just underscores something. This year will mark the 5th anniversary when George Floyd was murdered. And people responded to that in many different ways. But what we were fortunate to have is a county executive who understood the importance of bringing people together, understanding that we have to strike an equilibrium between fighting crime and doing the right thing. And our county executive has done just that. Please join me in welcome to the podium the Honorable Stuart Pittman.
Thank you, Carl. And I want to thank the planning committee that puts this together. Carl Snowden, Dee Goodwin, Vincent Molden, Tiana Parker, and Colleen Joseph, the last 3 from my staff. And then I also want to thank some of the others on my staff that have put tonight together. Chrissy Alvarez, Jennifer Holson, James Jones, Stacy Fitzgerald, and Janine Frattantuono, the flower lady, coming later. You may have noticed that this is a joint event between the Caucus of African American Leaders in Anne Arundel County. We started it early on in my administration because I believed that the best way to celebrate Black history and women's history was with community-based organizations. And it was the caucus that came up with the idea of celebrating people who are making Black history today rather than focusing solely on former Black history and people who made that history. So the selection of the amazing folks that are on this stage was made by the planning committee, and I want to congratulate Demetrius, Patsy, Tierra, Shamika, Joshua, Candace, Robert, Cheryl, Kirkland, David, Barbara, Renee, Richard, and Stephen. I'm sorry that I used your first names, but I know most of you, and even though one of you's a colonel, you know, it's okay, right? I hope. We'll get the whole story about you in just a minute, but tonight is about you all and the amazing work that you've done, and we're just very lucky that in this time where we read all the crazy stuff going on in Washington, and I'll just come out and say it, it's like the enemy's taken over, and every single hour it seems like there's a new attack on our people, all of our people. Ultimately, we'll all figure that out, and there will be a mass mobilization. We'll take this country back. But as we prepare for that, and as we manage our own mental health and our own feelings of shock and disgust at what we've been reading in the paper, it's when we come together as community that we get the strength that we will need for this mass mobilization that is before us. But one thing that has happened before the election, really 18 months ago, some local organizations made a request of me. They asked me, I'm talking about the Anne Arundel County Human Relations Commission, The president of the Anne Arundel chapter of NAACP and members of the Caucus of African American Leaders asked me why Anne Arundel County has never issued a formal apology for allowing and enforcing the enslavement of the black residents of our county between its formation in 1650 and November 1st, 1864. I couldn't answer that question. I could not answer, but I did respond that if they and others in the black descendant community thought that an apology would have value, I would work to make it happen while still in office. My staff presented me with a draft executive order modeled after the Annapolis apology. It was well written and sincere, but it felt too easy. Something was telling me that this moment called for more. I discussed reparations with some in the community. What would that look like? Everyone had a different answer. Some said it creates division. Others said I should hold off and wait until there's a proposal with broad-based community support, and that I and the county council should respond to that. I know those conversations are taking place. But an apology is something different. To me, an apology must be sincere. It must be well planned. And an apology of this magnitude in this historical moment must be informative, enriching, and inspiring. I spoke to Alex Haley. He said it should take place on November 1st. He offered to connect us with historical records and to black historians. I spoke to Chanel Compton Johnson, and she said that Banneker Douglas Tubman Museum would be happy to assist. I spoke to Janice Hayes Williams, just happens to be in the room. And it just so happens that she's working on an event to install the port marker at City Dock that same day. So we just may be planning something pretty big. But what's most important in my mind is that family stories be told. This has to be personal. I have mine. You may have yours. Some will be stories of shame, and some will be stories of pride and resilience. What matters is that we tell them. We look at our history and we acknowledge the harm that was done and what came out of it. We, and I mean all of us in this community, need these stories, and we need to experience the power of apology. So, our Office of Equity and Human Rights will lead an effort on the county's behalf, and we'll reach out in the community for stories, for family stories, collect information so that when the government of Anne Arundel County makes an apology, that it is the apology of all of the people, and that it is an apology that our residents will learn from, and that it is an apology in this time that will remind us how resilient we can be in difficult times and how we can get through anything and everything, and then we go on and do it. So I will sit down now. Thank you, and congratulate all of the amazing people on the stage, and I think I'll be up for a brief little closing at the end. All right, thank you.
Do anybody know who Geraldine Whittington was? Geraldine Whittington. I know you do. Anybody else know who Geraldine Whittington is? 2. Anybody else know who she is? For those who don't know who Geraldine Whittington was, she came from Anne Arundel County, southern part of the county. She made history. First African-American woman to be a personal secretary for a president of the United States who was Lyndon Baines Johnson. How is it possible that one could matriculate through Anne Arundel County Public Schools, Anne Arundel Community College, St. John's College, United States Naval Academy, and other places of higher learning, and our children have heard of a woman who was born during an era of segregation and would become the first black woman to serve a president. She did in 1963. Before the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964, she served as his personal secretary. I know young people want to know, how did that happen? How was that possible? How did she achieve that? Chanel Compton Johnson and I are going to be meeting with Dr. Bedell, the superintendent of schools. Our children need to know this history. They need to know people who came here and made history. If I ask people in this audience, who's George Washington? Every hand will probably go up because they know who George Washington was. But if you ask them who Madison Washington was, Madison Washington, who freed more black people than Abraham Lincoln, most people have never even heard of Madison Washington. That's why it's important that we celebrate African American history. And the next person I'm bringing up, I wanted to lay this foundation. Because 40 years from now, 50 years from now, our children need to know when people reach certain achievements based on their merit, their intelligence, their abilities. They need to know even in these times, the impossible became possible. It's my pleasure to welcome to the podium our state senator from Annapolis, Shanika Henson, the first African-American female.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Are y'all still ready to celebrate Black history? Yes. Are y'all still ready to celebrate these amazing honorees? Yes. I imagine that when each of these honorees got a call to say that you were being honored, that you probably said to yourself, me? Who, me? And that is because the few of the many awards recognizes those selfless leaders. It recognizes people who work not to seek fame, not to seek glory, not because you think anything will come in return for it except for the change in your community that you want to see. We know that you spend time away from your families, you spend long hours, you spend your money, your blood, your sweat, and your tears simply because the mission requires it. Not because you ever thought someone would pull you on a stage and give you an award, but you did it because it was the right thing to do. And that is so very necessary. There are positions where you are in the spotlight and you anticipate that, but how many people know that if Martin Luther King didn't have people to lead, he wouldn't be a leader? If Frederick Douglass didn't have people who sat and listened to and were inspired to actions by his words, then his name wouldn't be remembered. The people who are represented in the few of the many awards are the folks that make sure that leadership has that extra push. It's the person that you turn to when you have a big idea and you need to accomplish it and turn it into something. Those are the people who you see represented on this stage today, the few of the many. Y'all can clap right there. I am so very honored to be your state senator, and I am so very honored to use anything that I have gained for myself to shine a spotlight on the selfless and courageous people who we have honored today. So as you continue to spend your time in your communities, away from your families, putting yourself on the line, educating, telling stories, violence interrupting, helping people get jobs, being a part of preservation, making sure that when folks come home from incarceration, they're treated with dignity. As you continue to do the work that you do, please remember that on this day, your community took time out, stood still to recognize and honor your accomplishments and your very hard work. We are grateful for you, and we thank you, and we salute you. Thank you.
Let's give her another round of applause, please. Some of you may recall from my earlier remarks I had said that I'm proud of some of the appointments that the governor has made. People you just see the difference they're making. Our keynote speaker is a person I have great admiration for. And in part, it's because of his office, what he is doing. As I've gotten older and become a grandfather, I thought I'd be spending a lot of my time thinking about the good old days. I find myself focused more on the future now. What kind of world will my grandchildren inherit? What kind of America will we have? Will we have our young people prepared to take advantage of opportunities? It was the late Whitney Young who once said, "It is better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared." The gentleman that I'm going to be introducing is preparing our young people to do all kinds of marvelous things, looking at how we can take young people, similar to my granddaughter, don't know what she wants to do. One minute she tells me she wants to be a veterinarian. The next thing she wants to do is do hair, and somehow our secretary has come up with this way of addressing that issue. Please join me in welcome to the podium the Honorable Paul Monterey, Secretary for Department of Service and Civic Innovation.
Thank you very much, my leader. Good evening, everyone. It's a privilege to be with you for this rescheduled Black History Month ceremony, because every month is Black History Month. I was told 10 minutes, and I followed directions well, so someone with a timer, go ahead and set that, because I'm going to wrap up right at 10 minutes, if not sooner. To County Executive Pittman, thank you for your leadership in this county. Senator, thank you for your inspiring remarks. And our leader, Convener Snowden. I'm a big fan of history. I'm a history nerd. I used to be a history teacher. One of the quotes I'm most often quoting is Mark Twain's reminder that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. I've had the privilege of working for 3 presidents in my career, but I didn't know until I worked at the White House how the White House got its name. And it's not because of the color of the stone. Booker T. Washington sits down to dinner with Theodore Roosevelt, his wife, and his daughter. A black man sitting to dinner with the president and 2 white women. The outcry from the South was so negative. A few days later, an executive order was issued naming it the White House. Before that point, in the 20th century, it didn't have an official name. It was called the Palace or the President's House, informally. That's where the name came from. And no African American came back to the White House as a guest until 3 decades later. Knowing our history, because past is prologue, and there is no new thing under the sun. So in the short time I have, just doing a quick history, but really leaning into the modern day history that Governor Moore is creating through the service year option, talking about the history of African Americans in labor in this state. Maryland is a good example of people coming together from different backgrounds and learning how to live together. The Calvert family wasn't coming here for the weather. The Calvert family came here because they converted to Catholicism. in England. And at that time, you could not be a full citizen in England if you were Catholic. That knowing that, the concession was, here's a grant of land in the New World, go do the Catholic thing over there. And then almost immediately, mostly Protestants moved here. And that's how Maryland gets to be distinguished as having the first written attempt in the Western Hemisphere of using the power of government to mandate religious tolerance, the Maryland Toleration Act of 1649. If you don't say things about me and my beliefs, if you don't do things to me and my adherents, if you recognize these basic levels of respect, that's how we're going to live together. Because we don't see the world the same way. And doubly true with the African American experience, being shut out of the majority life in this state. Names like Isaac Myers, who made industry for himself, caulking ships in the port of Baltimore, starting as an apprentice, working his way up, supervising crews. But by 1865, as he's having some success, objections and a strike from white dock workers saying, don't hire these black ship workers. Being forced to the outskirts, learning, having to make their own industry, make their own way, and preserve their own economic base. So they form their own union. They come together understanding the power of collective action, creating their own business, quickly raising stock from investors like Frederick Douglass, raising $10,000, creating their own company, the Chesapeake Marine Railway and Dry Dock Company, in 1866, paying their members a living wage, $3 a day, earning, not being given, earning government contracts. And ultimately, hiring white workers too. Recognizing, again, the power of collective action and the need to collaborate across lines of difference. By 1868, he was president of the Colored Caulkers Trade Union Society of Baltimore. And he said, in trying to convince a national labor movement to admit black people into their ranks, he said, I quote, "I speak today for the colored men of the whole country when I tell you that all they ask for themselves is a fair chance, that you shall be no worse off by giving them that chance. The white men of the country have nothing to fear. We desire to have the highest rates of wages that our labor is worth." And he was ultimately unsuccessful. And the unfortunate reality in some parts of our labor movement's history in this country is that black people have been shut out. As you look at that sort of post-Civil War to the Second World War period, in many states, the way that the justice system was commercialized and weaponized, such that, well, black people can no longer be enslaved, but they can go to prison for 5 years for stealing a pig. Black people can no longer be enslaved, but they can go to prison for 10 years hard labor for stealing wood. The way the criminal justice and the legal system was used to serve the interests of business. A practice that only ended during the Second World War because we needed conscripts to serve in the army. A practice that continued for decades because it served the interests of business and minimized the rights of black people. Slavery by Another Name by Douglas Blackman goes deep into this. I read this book back in 2008 when I was working in another job. And the problem, and the scary problem of it, is because they were working with business, there are records of this. Families that had been emancipated in 1865, generation after generation, because they were working in concert with local government, records of how families were quickly put back into a position that was almost worse than slavery. And coming into the 20th century, luminaries like A. Philip Randolph, breaking into the national labor movement and saying there will be a place for us. Organizing the first mostly black union in the country, the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, in the 1920s. And long before Dr. King was organizing with others the March on Washington for Jobs and Justice in 1963, in 1941 organizing a March on Washington to be sure that then President Franklin Roosevelt did what he could through an executive order to stop the federal government's role in racial discrimination in the defense industry. It represented the first executive civil rights directive since Reconstruction. And in his words, A. Philip Randolph's words, quote, "To the end of correcting this evil, the Negro's next gift to America will be an economic democracy and demonstrating the virtue of the principle of collective bargaining, an economic base. The black political tradition is very mindful of rights enshrined in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, but also the economic power that we've been denied. He went on to say, the insistent cry for freedom on the part of the Negro has kept the American people face to face with the fact that a democracy has not fulfilled its highest mission, so long as there are people in the country, black or white, who cannot participate in the affairs of government, industry, or society generally as free, intelligent human beings. And then we come to Dr. King. And we all know Dr. King. But before 1963 and the March for Jobs and Justice in D.C., he's speaking to the AFL-CIO, one of the largest unions, in 1961. Quote, decent wages, fair working conditions, livable housing, old age security, health and welfare measures, conditions in which families can grow, have education for their children, and respect in the community. That's what was needed. And in his last book, in 1967, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? He talked about what good are the civil rights we've earned if we don't have an economic base to put them into action? What good is having the right to sit at a lunch counter if you can't afford to buy a hamburger? Economic security as a basis of our participation in our democracy. In the time I have left, I want to talk about Governor Moore's vision as seen through the service year option. Every year in this state, we have more than 15,000 young people who finish our high schools but don't report a next step in their life. They don't report job, military, or college. And COVID didn't help. What do we do with this human talent that gets stuck in the middle place? And what if we gave them a year to serve and discern what their next best step is? Whether apprenticeship, career, college, military, continued service. Not asking them to do it on the cheap, not asking them to do it for free, but paying them a living wage with benefits. Assigning a caring, responsible adult to them as a coach and a mentor. They would probably choose differently, choose wisely, and stay in the state. When you look at the number of young people that are choosing to go to college elsewhere, outside of Maryland, for every one Maryland high school graduate that goes to college in Maryland, 2 go to college elsewhere, outside of Maryland, and probably don't come back. Oh, that's time? Okay, let me wrap this up. And for the folks not going to college, because most young people don't go to college, in 2022, almost 60% of our 17 to 30-year-olds moved out of Maryland. Housing costs, transportation costs, childcare. We cannot win the decade without keeping our young people planted here and tapping into their sense of service and altruism, and also providing an economic base. Our members are paid at least $15 an hour, but many folks earn more depending on where they're placed. Again, they're assigned a caring, responsible mentor, and we've layered in apprenticeship. I'm proud to say in our first year, 80% of the first cohort walked out of our program at the end of the year with the money they earned, hard and soft skills, a $6,000 completion award, and a U.S. Department of Labor recognized credential, giving them tools. So Governor Moore very much knows that service will save us. And what he means by that is service is one of the last things left where people will come together outside of their corners, whatever part of the state they're from or whoever they voted for in November, to do something good. We have to build a pathway for these young people to find agency and to determine what's next for them. Not what their mom told them to do or because they had no other option, but giving them a real choice. And finding a choice, again, here in Maryland so that we can win the future and win the decade. Financial literacy is a consistent part of our program. For 10 months, they get consistent financial literacy provided by the Cash Campaign in Maryland, and they learn to serve together across lines of difference. The application is now open for the third class of nearly 900 people that will start serving this September. We've deliberately designed an application that takes less than 15 minutes. There is no GPA requirement. We want valedictorians. We want GED as well. We want people with a heart to serve. And the application is available at serve.maryland.gov or just Google service year option. But I really appreciate you giving me a chance to be here on this stage with you all who are modeling service for our city and our county and our state. It's really a privilege to share the stage with you for a few minutes. So God bless you all. Thank you.
Let's give the secretary another round of applause. We're just minutes away from doing our honorees. But I want to set the stage for something. Following me, Chanel Johnson's going to come out. We're going to start presenting the awards. I'm one of these people that believe people better pay attention. Sometimes things happen right in our face, and we forget. Tonight's celebration is about employment, jobs. It's about knowing what African Americans have been capable of doing. Things that some thought couldn't be done. For those who are interested, if you ever just look for inventions by black folks, you'd be stunned kind of things that African Americans have done. And one of the things that just bothers me when I run into people, when they do what they call stereotype. You know, they look at you and they assume certain things. You're not as intelligent as they. You cannot do a job. Before introducing this video, I want people to hear me and hear me well. If you're African American in America, nobody's never had this experience that I'm about to describe. It's so universal. Some of us just take it for granted and say we just gotta accept it. I tell you, I'm looking to the future for my grandchildren. I don't want them to have to go through things that my generation, the generation before me went through. What is he referring to? Let's assume for a moment you're working at some government job, as I have. Whether it's the city, the county, the state, or the federal government, all have had the honor of serving in. And your supervisor gets ill, gets incapacitated, and the powers to be decide, we're going to make you, young man, the interim supervisor. And you're so happy. You're moving up the rank. Interim supervisor gives you more money. And you go home and you share this good news with your wife. She too is happy. And all of a sudden, she says, honey, let's do something we've never done before, because we couldn't afford it. What's that, baby? We're going to take our kids to Disneyland. And you tell your kids, and all the kids are now excited. They know that they're going to be going to Disneyland. They've watched it on television, they've seen it, but they've never been to Disneyland. And the mother and the father are so happy. And then something happens at work. A decision is made. And we're going to advertise this position that you've been appointed to, but you feel fine. You've been doing it for 9 months. Everybody's giving you great accolades, say how wonderful the job is. You say, I'll be happy to do the interview. And you do the interview. And you're not selected. Someone else is. But here's the powerful piece. After you're not selected, your supervisor tells you you need to train the person who they selected. Now, when that happens to people, and it's real, how do you go home and tell your wife? The job that I thought I had, that I've been doing for 9 months, I no longer have. And she, of course, said, why, honey? What happened? Your children started shouting, we still going to Disney World? The context of the history of employment has always been a challenge. And I'm just so proud of this moment. Some of you will know it instantly when you see it. But for me, this moment captured something in the American spirit. It came from a woman that all of you will know. It came from that moment in time where, like Rosa Parks, when she set in, we stood up. This woman was speaking to millions of people, and here's what she said.
For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hard-working, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black. Wait. I want to know. Who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs?
Just before Ms. Johnson comes on, as we go into this program, paying homage and commending these honorees. Those of you who came here, I know didn't expect a Black History test, but I got one for you. Who do you believe was the most revered African-American person, living or deceased? Who do you think it was? Who do you consider the most revered African-American? Can I hear some names? A little louder. Any other names? What are the great names you give out? Whether they are deceased, some say Martin Luther King Jr. was revered in this nation. Others say that Barack Obama proved that men and women of color can reach the high places in this nation. If you selected Sojourner Truth, who was this beautiful woman who said, "Ain't I a woman?" If you selected Frederick Douglass, who said, "Where there is progress, there must be protest." If you selected any of those, or anybody else you have in mind, I ask you this one question. If Martin Luther King Jr. was running for president of the United States and had 34 felonies, had been found liable for sexually assaulting a woman, could he have been elected president of the United States? When you go through your history, that tells us where we are. And that is why tonight we're honoring men and women. That's going to change America so that no matter what job you seek, people will look at you based on your merit, based on your character, based on what you're able to bring to the job. Please welcome to the podium Chanel Compton Johnson, who is the Executive Director of Banner Douglas Tubman.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you please give a history maker, a change agent, an activist, our hero of the hour, of the day, and for a generation to come, Mr. Carl Snowden? How we feeling tonight? In Arundel County, are you ready for a revolution? I know that's right. It is an incredible incredible evening that we're able to honor our local heroes and sheroes who are making great change in our county. Just in this city, our young people need us. Their communities need us. They need greater investment. Because when you disinvest in communities, which has happened time and time again in Black communities throughout the nation, through urban renewal, through systemic disinvestment, our young people suffer. I was honored to interview all of the awardees tonight, and I'm proud to say that every single last one of them center youth and community in their work. Can we please give them all a round of applause? You know, at the Banneker Douglas Tubman Museum, your state museum on Black history, if you come to our museum, you'll see on the walls, of course, Frederick Douglass, Benjamin Banneker, and I know that's right. But you also see on the walls some names that you haven't heard about in your own history books, that our museum is keeping alive, these community stories and memories, such as the folks that you see here on the stage. So I'll be reading their bios, but I also have a call to action. You want to hear that call to action? Now, you know, activists such as Carl Snowden, I see Janice Hayes Williams in the crowd, they'll tell you local elections matter, right? But also pouring into local organizations matter even more. So I'll be reading the bios, and I want you to pay attention. If there are any organizations that ring true to you, look them up, because Google is your best friend. Talk to these local community leaders after the program. Ask how you can support, because every dollar matters. Our funding, our investment in communities throughout the nation is being cut and threatened every day. And we all have work to do to make sure that that doesn't happen. All right? Clap it up. Clap it up. So, on to the awardees. Are we ready, y'all? Okay. Demetrius L. Ballard. As president of the Old Mill Youth Association and head coach of Severn School football, Demetrius is committed to mentoring young athletes. Through Moose Athletics, he fosters teamwork, discipline, and leadership, ensuring that sports serve as a platform for personal growth and success. His dedication extends beyond the field, creating opportunities for youth to thrive in all aspects of life. Tonight, we honor Demetrius for his passion, mentorship, and commitment to shaping the next generation. Dr. Patsy Baker Blackshear is a dedicated advocate for African American history, heritage, and education. As president of the Kunta Kinte Alex Haley Foundation, she led the 25th anniversary of the Alex Haley Memorial, preserving its legacy in downtown Annapolis. A former Anne Arundel County Board of Education and Anne Arundel County Board of Appeals member, she shaped policy, education, and community engagement. Through her leadership, she continues to uplift African American heritage and inspire meaningful change. Tonight, we honor Dr. Blackshear for her lifelong commitment to cultural preservation and community leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Blackshear. I'm going to say that again, the Kunta Kinte Alex Haley Foundation. Next up, we have Tiara Brown. A proud graduate of Meade Senior High School, Tiara has called Severn West County home for 4 generations. Her journey as a community advocate began at 14 years old at the Boys and Girls Club, where she gained foundational leadership and service skills. For over 20 years, she has been a dedicated advocate serving as a health ambassador and violence interrupter with Kingdom Care, with a K, Inc., supporting residents through challenges. Inspired by her parents' legacy of grassroots activism, she continues to uplift her community through mentorship, service, and advocacy. Tonight, we celebrate Tiara for her unwavering dedication to making a meaningful impact. Kingdom Care Inc. with the K, y'all. Next, we have history maker, youth mentor, and marketing expert extraordinaire, Shamika Meek Cole. Ms. Cole is a dedicated youth mentor and a passionate community advocate. A proud mother and grandmother, family is at the heart of everything she does. She empowers young people through mentorship and advocacy, ensuring they have the support and guidance needed to succeed. As a marketing professional, she elevates local brands and has worked on some of the largest concerts in the DMV area. Her commitment to giving back and uplifting others have made her a pillar in her community. Tonight, we honor Ms. Meek for her dedication to youth, empowerment, community engagement, and service. Joshua Hatch is a champion. For second chances, supporting individuals impacted by the criminal legal system. As Vice President of the Anne Arundel County Community Action Agency, he leads diversion and reentry services, helping returning citizens rebuild their lives. Appointed by Governor Westmore, our governor, he serves as chair of the task force on the creation of a division of returning citizens and expanded reentry services, advocating for reentry support at the state level. He played a key role in the Turnaround Thursday, a program offering employment opportunities to those seeking a fresh start. Tonight, we recognize Joshua for his tireless efforts in the reentry advocacy and community empowerment. Aren't they amazing? I mean, I'm trying not to get choked up. Vincent, you know I cry a lot. All right. Candace Henson. Candace is a dedicated educator and advocate. Candace is committed to student success in Anne Arundel County Public Schools since 2007. She supervises opportunity and access liaisons and serves as a mentor coordinator and family support specialist with Charting Careers. Connecting students with resources, helping them thrive. Passionate about empowerment and equity, she has led college and state capital trips to inspire young scholars and supports in the Take Back Your 10 Initiatives program, combating youth and tobacco marketing. Through community partnerships, she has organized impactful events for Meade area schools, ensuring students have access to health-changing opportunities. Tonight, we honor Candace for her dedication to mentorship, advocacy, and uplifting the next generation. Y'all better give her flowers. Robert L. Johnson is an educator, administrator, and community leader with over 20 years of experience advancing equity in education, social services, and community development. As executive director of My Community Leader, he leads efforts in climate justice, clean energy, and youth advocacy, creating pathways for underserved communities. His work with Bowie State University, HBCU, and the CAL Energy Conference, CAL Conference, Energy Conference has fostered dialogue on sustainability and social change. Actively engaged in civic service, he serves on commissions dedicated to fathers, men, and boys, working to strengthen families and community ties. Tonight, we celebrate Robert for his passion for equity, education, and community empowerment. These folks are no joke. Well, she used to be my boss, and she continues to be my boss in so many ways. Miss Cheryl A. McLeod, Esquire. A dedicated social justice advocate, Cheryl fights for labor rights, civic engagement, and human rights. She has successfully negotiated job security and fair compensation for public school employees, especially on Maryland's Eastern Shore. Her activism includes voter protection, marches, town halls, and legislative advocacy for HBCUs and the BWI Marshall Airport. She works with the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture. Shout out if there are any commissioners or past commissioners in the room. Yes. The Caucus of African American Leaders and the Banneker Douglas Tubman Museums to preserve and promote African American heritage. Tonight, we honor Cheryl for her tireless commitment to equity, truth, and justice. We love you, Cheryl. Next, we have Kirkland J. Murray. None other than Kirkland J. Murray, as president and CEO of the best workforce development organization in the world, Anne Arundel County Workforce Development Corporation. Kirkland has transformed the organization into a national leader in workforce innovation. Under his leadership, the Workforce Development Organization has developed industry-focused training, work and learning opportunities, and soft skills programs to prepare individuals for career success. With a strong background in economic development, he continues to create pathways that connect job seekers with sustainable employment. Tonight, we honor Kirkland for his visionary leadership in workforce development and economic empowerment. Wonderful. He said, see you tomorrow. You better give Mr. Kirkland his flowers. All right. Next, we have none other than retired Colonel David H. Patterson, Jr., a distinguished Army veteran. David served 27 years of active duty, including deployments in Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraq Freedom, and Operation New Dawn. A Morgan State ROTC Hall of Fame inductee in 2020, he holds degrees in criminal justice from Coppin State University and a distinguished military graduate. His service spans combat arms, military intelligence, and public affairs, earning him numerous commendations, including 2 Legions of Merit and a Bronze Star. In retirement, he remains a dedicated leader in the Caucus of African American Leaders, championing initiatives to strengthen communities and support veterans. Tonight, we honor Mr. Patterson, Colonel Patterson, for his exemplary military service, leadership, and continued commitment to our community. And he looks dapper doing it. Next, we have the amazing Barbara A. Quay. As Business Development Director at Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation, Barbara supports the growth of local businesses and entrepreneurs. She leads inclusive ventures programs, helping minority women and veteran-owned businesses access capital, mentorship, and resources. Beyond the Economic Development Corporation, she contributes to economic and diversity initiatives, serving on the Comptroller of Maryland's advisory councils, PG&E's Economic Development Advisory Council, and the IDEA Committee. With a background in finance and business development, she is committed to economic empowerment and community growth. Tonight, we honor the flyest, the leader, the beauty, Miss Barbara, for her leadership in business development and inclusion and economic opportunity. Renee F. Spears. A retired educator and passionate advocate for the arts, Renee Spears has dedicated her life to community engagement and cultural preservation. She has played key roles in the Annapolis Arts District, the Kunta Kinte Festival, Maryland Hall, and the MLK Parade, promoting diversity and inclusion. Through her YouTube channel, y'all better subscribe, Storytime with Mrs. Spears, she shares stories that celebrate African American history and culture. As a longtime board member of the Chesapeake Children's Museum, she has worked to ensure that representation of African American families are in educational spaces. Tonight, we honor you, Ms. Renee, for your commitment to storytelling, cultural enrichment, and community impact. Richard Von Dyke, a retired banking executive with over 30 years experience. Richard rose to the senior vice president level in major financial institutions. Since moving to Annapolis, he has collaborated with schools, workforce development, and the community college to support career guidance and job initiatives. He actively participates in school career days and job fairs, helping students connect with opportunities. As board president of Charting Careers, he has expanded mentorship, tutoring, and life skills programs, ensuring that all graduates continue their education at four-year universities or community colleges. Tonight, we honor you, Richard, for your commitment to education, mentorship, and workforce development. Thank you, Mr. Van Dyke. I love it when men get flowers, and women. Stephen B. Williams. Oh, Stephen, I said Stephen. Stephen B. Williams comes from a long line of change agents. I'm looking at his mother in the audience. A proud Anne Arundel County native and Morgan State University graduate, Stephen B. Williams has built a career in engineering and infrastructure development. As Senior Construction Services Manager at ATCS, he leads transportation projects across Maryland, overseeing contracts and management and field staff. A dedicated mentor and leader, he became the youngest president for the Eta Eta Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and now chairs the Alpha Academy Mentorship Program. I'm going to say that again. The Alpha Academy Mentorship Program. Under his leadership, the program has grown from 20 mentees to over 100 students, expanding into Annapolis and Anne Arundel high schools, with support from key community partnerships. Tonight, we honor Stephen for his commitment to mentorship, youth empowerment, and just being a change agent amongst us. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's give all of that honorees a round of applause.
I know the secret. Secret to your pain. Of course, I didn't always know. See, first I had to die, then come back to life before I had to give. You see, the captain sent me off up ahead to scout for screaming soldiers. Of course, for the life of me, I couldn't understand why they'd be screaming, seeing as how we was trying to kill them and they us. But anyway, I'm off up ahead looking. When all of a sudden I found myself caught smack dead in the middle of this explosion. This blinding, burning, scalding explosion. It must have been a booby trap or something, see? Because my flesh is just peeling off my bones like a piece of chicken dropped in a skillet of crackling grease. Then I stopped. I said, Junie, if you on fire, how come you ain't feeling no pain? And as sure as I'm standing here, I didn't feel a thing. So I got on up, walked on out of that explosion. I mean, hell, once you know you're dead, why keep on dying, you know? So like I said, I walked on out of that explosion, fully expecting to see white clouds, Jesus, and my mama. Only all I saw was more war. Well, there was shooting going on way off over there in that direction, and shooting going on way over there. And standing over there was all the fellas. I guess the sound of the explosion must have attracted them, see? Because they all standing around staring at me like I'm some kind of ghost. So as I took to stand back. Only what I saw. Well, I can't exactly to this day describe it, but as sure as they was wearing green and holding guns, each and every one of them had a piece of the future on their faces and blood on their pads. I saw how Woodrow, once he got back from fighting in the war, he was going to get shot dead by the police. I saw how JF, once he got back, he was going to take the beating up on his old lady, which I could never understand because all he could ever do was talk about how much he loved her. Each and every one of them had nothing but pain and blood. So right then and there is when it come to me. Later on that night, after everybody else had gone off to sleep, with a needle I stole from the medics, I shot a little air into their veins. 2 weeks later, I got Woodrow. Then I got Jimmy Joe. Shoot, I even got the captain because I always knew he made a late night visit to the latrine. And I got him too. Oh, well, see, that's how come I died and didn't come back to life. Because just like Jesus went around healing all the sick, see, I'm supposed to go around healing all the hurting that these colored boys is wearing from the war. Psst. Psst. I know the secret. The secret to your pain. And the secret to yours. And yours. And yours. Psst.
Will Rao. We want to thank Will Rao. We want to thank Michael Posterwaite, who was playing the instrument for us throughout the reception. I want to thank Dee Goodwin, who's in the audience. We want to thank Vincent Molden, and of course, Tiana Parker. We want to thank her, and Colin Joseph, and all those who made it possible. Now, we're moving toward the closure. When the program's over, we'd like all honorees to get a photograph with the county executive. And Senator, I'm going to ask you to join us in that photograph along with Councilman Pete Smith, this historic moment. And I want to conclude before bringing the county executive on, who's going to bring the final closing remarks. Many of you have heard me say over and over again, I talk about my mother all the time. She lived to be 104 years old. And I just remember something she told me that I think is appropriate to leave with the group tonight. And it's something took me a while to practice, but I got it now. My mother once said, time is not an ally. I didn't understand what she meant when she said that. My mother told me that when she was 80, and I told you she passed at 104. And we would just have conversations. My mother was a living history. Wasn't something she read it, but it's something she experienced. And one day I asked my mother this question. How did black people survive the Great Depression? I asked. For those who don't know the history, there was no Social Security program in 1929. There were no welfare programs that we know today. Mama, I said, how? Racism was so prevalent. It was the law of the land. How did black people survive? And my mother said, son, we turn toward one another, not on one another. She said, son, our community learned how to barter. There were teachers who, during the Great Depression, would tutor children in exchange for farmers who would grow produce and give those produce for the tutoring lessons. There were seamsters, people who graded sewing, would sew clothes. She said, as a community, we came together because we recognized that only by working together could we survive this Great Depression. I never forgot that. And the second thing she told me, and I leave it with you tonight, it took me a while to understand this, but I got it now. If there's someone you love, truly love, someone that you care for, do not make the mistake of not telling that person while they can see it, I love you. Them symbolic giving people their flowers now, y'all don't know what that means to me. There are men and women in this room who come together for this great purpose. And I hope those of you who understand the wisdom of my mother take the moment to tell somebody you care for, you love them. Never go to sleep. Never telling the person you love that you love them. You may wake up one morning, they may not be there. The last thing someone should remember you saying to them before retiring for the night is, I love you. So if you just turn to your neighbor on the left or the right, look him or her in the eye, and just simply say, I love you. Now, as the county executive will tell you, because he's heard it before, when I was 14 years old, a young girl told me she loved me, and the next day she was with another man. So I know something about love. You can't fool me. I know what love really means. So I'm going to ask you one more time to look at your neighbor. The eyes are the window to one's soul. When you look somebody in the eye, you're looking at their soul. And when they tell you, I love you, if you don't feel that tingling feeling, if you don't feel that I want to get with you right now moment, they ain't loving you. One more time, look at your neighbor and just simply say, I love you. With no further ado, I present to you our county executive for the closing remarks, the Honorable Stuart Pittman.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say.
So Vincent told me that the stuff that I said earlier I was supposed to say at the end. So here I am at the end. And then I thought, well, I'm going to do that I love you thing that Carl does. Well, Carl did that. I got something better. How about this? So I was up in Brooklyn Park, and we were meeting about a program with the governor up there and ending childhood poverty across this state and in Brooklyn Park. And I noticed at one moment that he looked across the table and he recognized somebody from somewhere. And he just reached across and fist bumped him across the table. And then I went home and I Googled fist bump because I remembered these great experiences fist bumping during COVID and, throughout my life. And, what's the history of fist bumps? And I read all about how it's sports and in social movements. And I thought, man, we're at a moment right now. So maybe the symbol of our resistance and the mobilization that we need to do is the fist bump. So turn to the person to your right and fist bump. And then turn to the person to your left and fist bump. Have a great evening.